Hey guys, so here's my pointless disclaimer telling you guys that this video contains spoilers. But I'm sure you guys don't care at all, because it seems you guys can't shut your mouth about making another anime. Haru Kamida! Yeah! Why do I still do this? And to start Black Clover off, we have this FedEx delivery to this one church in the middle of nowhere, which includes two of our main characters, Asta and Yuno. We then get a 15-year time skip, because childhood isn't really all that interesting, right? And yeah, here we have older Yuno and older Asta, who apparently lacks the ability to use magic, and also lacks a mute button. Ah yes, music to my ears. So moving past that, we then have Asta declaring that he'll become the Wizard King. Who knows if that'll ever come true? He's just the main character after all. And so moving forward once more, apparently all 15-year-olds in the Clover Kingdom are gathered at this ceremony, which grants them Grimoires to further enhance their magical abilities. We then learn that nobles are born with immense power and are able to get through the Magic Knight's entrance exams easy peasy. But that doesn't bother Yuno in the slightest, who is a peasant, and he gets the legendary 4-leaf Clover Grimoire. And after receiving it, he then announces to the world that he'll become the Wizard King. Wow. As for Asta, his Grimoire does not spawn. Feels bad, man. And so moving forward past that, we then have this one threat who pulls up and does some BDSM shit on Yuno. Kinda weird, dude. And shortly after, Asta shows up, runs into a wall. How very hilarious. On which Asta also gets rolled by this threat. Soon after, he gets up with the power of plot armor. And what's this? A 5-leaf Grimoire that comes out of thin air? Well, that's a little convenient. And using his newfound 5-leaf Grimoire, which apparently resides a demon or something, he then looks like he's ready to decapitate his opponent. But before we get into that, we then get hit up by this one flashback with Asta being Asta. And during this flashback, we then have Sister Lily telling them a story about a mage who soloed this one demon that threatened the entire world, but slays it with ease, and was crowned as the Wizard King. The very thing our two main characters want to be. My ears! And oh hey, there's the skull of the fallen demon with a statue of the first Wizard King on it. I wonder if it serves any importance to the story. And so moving forward in this flashback, we then have Yuno on mailman duty delivering some mail. Upon completing his quest, he then encounters a broke alcoholic looking for some cash. And so he snatches Yuno's necklace and punts him afterwards. This is where Asta comes out and is like, hey yo, we playing football? And gets absolutely bitched. And after many of Asta's pathetic attempts, the dude got tired. He was like, you know what? You can have the pendant. I don't care anymore. And yeah, we have this very nice ending to this flashback. Now back to the main event. Asta versus this one level 1 AI. And of course, with being the main character, he one-taps him. What did you expect? And by doing so, he saves Yuno in the process. We then have them bro-fisting as rivals, telling each other, let's see who could become the Wizard King. Yuno, didn't you just lose to a level 1 AI? Never mind. Moving forward, we now get to see the Clover Kingdom's royal capital, where all the rich people are. And here we are informed by the narrator that the title of the Wizard King has been passed through generations, and his job is to command the Magic Knights to keep the kingdom protected. Now cutting to our main characters, where we have them doing some training for the upcoming Magic Knights exam that will be held in the royal capital of the Clover Kingdom. And the whole point of this exam is to get recruited into one of the Magic Knight squads. And so after this nice little training session, they then have their last dinner with the family before heading off to the royal capital for the exam. And after traveling a very long and hard journey, they make it to the royal capital. Upon entering the royal capital, we get to see the royal castle where the Wizard King and King resides. How very epic. And soon after, Asta and Yuno register for the Magic Knights exam. They then head to the exam venue where all the participants are. And here, Asta encounters Yami, the captain of the Black Bulls. We then soon after get introduced to the other Magic Knights captains who will be overseeing the exam. Nozel Silva, captain of the Silver Eagles. Fuegolion Vermilion, captain of the Crimson Lion Kings. Jack the Ripper, captain of the Green Praying Mantises. Charlotte Roselay, captain of the Blue Rose Knights. Yojre Poizatz, captain of the Purple Orcas. Dorothy Ainsworth, captain of the Coral Peacocks. Cox. Real Boys Moitier, captain of the Aqua Deers. And the almighty William Vongens, captain of the Golden Dawn, which seems to be the strongest Magic Knight squad out of the bunch. And also apologies if I f up any of the pronunciations for the names. Black Clover honestly has the hardest f***ing names in existence. I don't even know what the f I'm looking at here. Anyways, now proceeding with the exam, where our participants partake in various tests that focus on their magical abilities. And as we progress through the exam, we then have this 1v1 segment where the participants fight. Asta ends up destroying his opponent, leaving a little bit of residue on his face. Yuno ends up destroying his opponent as well. I mean, they are the main characters, so that kind of makes sense. And with this stage now over, that concludes the exam. And we are now at the part where the participants get chosen by the captains to join their squad. Yuno ends up getting chosen by all the captains, but the one he follows through with is the Golden Dawn. As for Asta, he gets drafted into the Black Bulls by Captain Yami. And with that arrangement, our two main characters then go their separate ways. And from this point forward, we follow the underdog, Asta, on his journey to become the Wizard King. Or it's not guaranteed that he'll become the Wizard King, because like, Naruto wants to become the Hokage, but oh wait. Anyways, Asta then gets yeeted into a portal to the Black Bulls base, where he meets his fellow squad mates Gordon, Vanessa, Luck, Ghost. Why is it spelt like this? Charmy, Gray, Magna, and Finral. Asta then goes through a series of trials set up by Magna to receive his Black Bulls robe, on which they play a little bit of baseball, and yeah, that's how he got everyone's approval. He then eats a cupcake and gets his robe, officially becoming a member of the Black Bulls. And right here, we have this one girl peeking over the corner. There's no way she's that significant to the story, right? The following morning, Magna then gives Asta a house tour, and things get a little wacky. And oh hey, it's that one girl from before, and she introduces introduces herself as Noelle Silva in a very tsundere fashion, following up with leaving in a tsundere fashion, later going into some training because apparently she has no control over her magic, despite her being born in a royal family, which has exceedingly high expectations. With that said, we then learn that she has insane trauma from getting roasted by her family members non-stop, and this is where she spots Asta spying on her, which makes her go absolutely bonkers, damn near flooding the entire area. Yami then yeets Asta to clean up the mess, on which she does with one single slash, nullifying her magic. And oh yeah, by the way, I haven't really explained Asta's ability yet this far into the video. How very professional of me. But let me give you a quick rundown. Pretty much this sword can slash through any form of magic, nullifying it, or reflect magic if he uses the flat side of the sword. I'm sure there's probably a lot more to explain, but I'm just giving you a TLDR, okay? Anyways, back to the story. After that little incident, this is where we have a very uplifting, wholesome moment where everyone accepts Noelle into the Black Bulls. I damn near cried, man. And so moving forward past that, we then have Asta and Noelle getting assigned their first mission to go to Soshi Village to do some good old boar hunting because fuck wildlife, man. Alongside them, Magna tags along and using his crazy cyclone, they fly to their destination. Upon arrival, they farm wild boars like it's Maplestory, and as they are walking along, they notice some mist surrounding a village, and they were like, huh, seems dangerous. We should definitely check it out. Upon entering this village, we then see this one villain attempting to slaughter a bunch of villagers, but Magna comes in clutch and saves them. The bad guy then tries to make another attempt to wipe everyone out, but this time Asta comes in for the save. And you may be asking, why are these villains here? Well, apparently they're looking for a magic stone of some sort, which is located somewhere in this village. And I guess they're just killing for funsies, so very understandable. We then have a full-blown war that breaks out between the Black Bulls and these level 1 AIs, and in the process, Noelle unlocks a new spell, which is quite massive. We then have Magna out here throwing some hot balls like he's fucking Mario or something, on which the enemy avoids. But little did they know, Asta pulls up right behind them and reflects the balls in the opposite direction, hitting them from the back real good, shortly after following up with the final blow. And with that said, all the villains are now defeated, and would you look at that, one of them gets away. But that dude was barely a threat, so why does that even matter? We just need to look at the bright side and that the villagers have been saved. And shortly after the villains' defeat, they were like, alright, we're gonna just head out now, and end up self-destructing. A rather unfortunate fate, if I do say so. We then have this one anti-bird, aka Nero, which they name later on, appearing from Asta's cloak and flying into the sky, going to this one place where the magic stone is located. Definitely something an ordinary bird would do. Nero soon after brings the stone back to the Black Bulls, and what does the stone do? Who knows? It's probably not that important to the plot, right? Moving forward, Asta and the others return back to the Black Bulls base, and this is where they inform Yami about what happened. And he was like, good job. Also telling them that the Wizard King acknowledged their actions and gave the Black Bulls a gold star like that one SpongeBob episode. We then learned that the other Magic Knight squads compete with these stars, and the Golden Dawn has the biggest dick out of all of them and has a total of 70, while the Black Bulls have negative 30. Not too shabby. Now cutting to Yuno's point of view because, believe it or not, he's actually the main character too. We can see him accompanied with his new squad mates Klaus and Mimosa. And oh my, what's this? An enemy attack? Oh wait, I forgot Yuno was the OP main protagonist character trope, and he single-handedly takes them out with one blast. And oh, another enemy? Dead. Another? Dead. Another? Dead. And oh look, the Golden Dawn gets a golden star. Moving forward, the Black Bulls now get a mission to investigate and conquer a dungeon that has spawned near the enemy borders. The enemy being the Diamond Kingdom. Asta then learns that the Wizard King particularly chose him for the job, and he was like, OMG. Tagging along with him on this mission, we have the two reliable lads, Noelle and Luck, and upon entering this dungeon, there is a very strong mana presence on which Asta is the only one that cannot detect it. And while walking around a bit, Noelle ends up stepping on a trap, on which it results in this tentacle monster spawning, and getting a hold of both her and Asta. Why must these things exist everywhere I go? Anyways, this is where plot kicks in, and Yuno comes out of nowhere and saves the day, destroying this creature. And with the Golden Dawn pulling up, this is where we have a little bit of drama between these two girls, oh no, and Klaus doing the anime glasses thing. Shortly after having a bit of a rose session, the Golden Dawn part ways to explore the dungeon to find the treasure chamber before the Black Bulls do, as a way to assert their dominance. Moving forward, we then have Luck encountering a bad guy from the Diamond Kingdom, Lotus of the Abyss. Such an intimidating name indeed, and this guy's responsible for leading the invasions on the Clover Kingdom, mainly because his kingdom is lacking resources. And of course, with this being a shonen, they end up fighting. Luck then gets overwhelmed, but this is where Asta comes in for the save. The Black Bulls then coordinate a very beautiful team attack because we all know teamwork makes the dream work, and with Lotus now injured, he then summons a smoke car and dips the battlefield. Meanwhile, now switching to the Golden Dawn's POV, they find the gate to the treasure chamber, and of course things are never that simple, and they get attacked by a bad guy. This bad guy is also from the Diamond Kingdom, and his name is Mars, who's apparently a secret weapon of the Diamond Kingdom that has magical stones embedded into him to amplify his magical powers. With that said, they struggle a bit with this threat, and so Yuno tries to use a big move on him, on which absolutely does but fuck nothing. And as things are looking pretty grim for the Golden Dawn, this is where the power plot pulls through, and Asta appears to save the day. And with the Black Bulls pulling up, Asta ends up fighting the boss battle, while the others fight the clones. And of course, with being the main character, Asta claps Mars pretty easily. They then restrain Mars and proceeds to open the treasure chamber by slashing through it. After looting a few power-ups and other stuff, Mars then makes his return because you gotta understand that shonen villains have more than one life. Asta then gets knocked into a wall, where Nero escorts him to a new sword that he could use. A very convenient power-up if I do say so. With that said, Asta is now back in action and unfortunately takes an L by getting getting impaled in the belly button. This is when Yuno freezes time and we see this one fairy appear. The fairy then blows magic at Mars and absolutely annihilates him. Asta's new sword then flies into his inventory, aka his Grimoire, and soon after the dungeon starts collapsing. This is when everyone makes a speedy escape, even including our villains Lotus and Mars. We then have Asta regaining consciousness and telling the animators to change the camera angle real quick, which unfortunately results in him experiencing more pain. Moving forward, Yami tells Asta that the Magic Knight's headquarters wants information about the dungeon. While heading there, Noelle and Asta run into the Golden Dawn once more. Asta then thanks Mimosa for healing him, and she ends up running off. This is when Noelle and her have some girl talk about Asta, and Mimosa says she may like Asta. This is when Noelle is like, huh? Maybe I like him too, but I'm not gonna admit it because I'm a Cinderella after all. They then end up running into the Wizard King, on which he tells Yuno that the Wind Spirit Sylph has chosen him to be her user. And also the Wizard King gets a hold of Asta's sword and notices that it absorbs his magic while he holds it. He then later tells Asta that he's the only one who's able to use the sword because he has no magic present in him. We then have the anime glasses guy doing the anime glasses thing again, and then we have Yuno and Asta asking the Wizard King how to be the Wizard King, and he laughs and tells them that they need merit. How very cool. Shortly after, the Wizard King invites them to this decoration ceremony for the Magic Knights, on which they accept, and pretty much this whole ceremony is where the Magic Knights are given ranks to indicate their level of ability, and the Wizard King is the one responsible for giving them out. Following the ceremony, we then have Noelle's family members roasting her again, calling her a failure to the family that killed their mother. This is where Asta gets very angry and gets attacked by one of the nobles, but he simply slashes through the attack. He then tells them that he's gonna pile up a bunch of merit and become the Wizard King. And you know what? I believe him. We then have this guy bursting in saying that the capital is under attack, and we got some zombies taking over. Asta then runs out to help, and this one dude named Leopold follows him, who apparently made Asta his rival. We then have Fugolion giving out orders to take care of the situation, and the Magic Knights clear through the zombies. We then learn that the villain behind the attack is named Rads, and Rads reveals that his main target is Fugolion. Following that, Fugolion gets warped into another dimension, and shortly after warped back just a little bit injured. Rads then tries to leave, but Asta stops him, and this is when the bad guys captures Asta's dumbass. But the Wizard King is like, hey yo, you can't steal the main character like that, and appears freezing all the bad guys in sight, and saving Asta with ease. The bad guys then all vanish, and the Wizard King returns with Asta, which everyone seems to be happy about. Moving forward, we're now back at the Black Bulls base, and it seems the Bulls got paid today, and it's their day off. Asta ends up going to a restaurant to get fat, and this is when it starts snowing. We then got these evil mages forcing these children to walk through the snow. We then later learn that the snow is magic, and it affects kids whose magic hasn't matured. Asta, along with Ghosh, who happen to be in the area, then head off to save these kids, because, I mean, they are the protagonists after all. We then have Ghosh and Asta pulling up to the scene, killing a few Frosty the Snowmans, and Asta one-tapping one of the villains, and Ghosh one-tapping the other, who was responsible for the snow spell. Shortly after, Asta uses his sword to nullify the spell that was placed on the children, and Ghosh ends up beating up one of the villains for what he did to his sister Marie, who happened to be one of the children involved. And Ghosh has a little bit of a sister complex. That's nothing out of the ordinary, right? So, you know, let's move on. Where we have the villain crying on the floor saying all he wanted was friends. And you know what? We all feel bad for him. We all really do feel bad for him. We then have this crazy scientist girl appearing out of nowhere, who's apparently a part of the villainous group called the Eye of the Midnight Sun, which is a group of rogue mages with the goal to decimate the Clover Kingdom. Thank you, Wiki. And this girl ends up injecting one of the villains with a serum to become this absolute monstrosity. Ghosh then reveals his secret eye, which gives Asta the ability to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and with him having multiple clones of himself, he then uses Getsuga Tensho, followed up with a finishing blow to defeat this monster, along with the crazy scientist lady. The snow villain that gets 360 no-scoped by some magical light, and then the leader of the Eye of the Midnight Sun appears and attacks Ghosh. The leader is named Licht, by the way, and he cries like a bitch, seeing the crazy scientist girl injured. Licht then vows to destroy the Clover Kingdom, saying that he'll destroy it and create a kingdom of his own. Asta then says, you're a shonen villain, that's impossible. It gets hit for talking back. Yami then pulls up to save Asta, and of course, we have a whole ass fight that breaks out. Yami then explains the concept of ki to Asta because why not? We then have Voltos, another member of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, coming in as backup, and this is where Asta applies his recently acquired knowledge about ki and uses it in combat, deflecting one of Voltos' attack back at him. What a fast learner. Following that, Yami and Asta then get into this predicament where it seems Licht is about to finish them off, but Ghosh comes in clutch and reflects the attack back at him and defeats him. With that said, they restrain Licht, and it seems everything's all good now. The kids are back at the village, and yay, the villains are now defeated. But oh wait, it seems it's not all over because Licht's reinforcements come in, which are 3 more members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, Raya, Veto, and Fauna. We then learn that all 3 of them are stronger than the Magic Knight captains, so that's quite scary, and this is where the Magic Knight captains pull up. And we have this huge fight between the good guys and the bad guys, and we got Asta and Yami landing a beautiful combo attack on Licht, and with landing this hit, that managed to break the magical seal that held Licht's powers back, which was so immense that the 3 members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun had to come together and reseal his ass. Shortly after, they retreat, and yeah, with the bad guys gone, we can celebrate. Moving forward, the Wizard King says there's a traitor among us, and that there's their Magic Knight's captain that has ties to the Eye of the Midnight Sun. The captains are all then gathered into one place, and it's revealed that the captain of the Purple Orcas, Gildray, was sus! And we all knew, because who the fuck has a name like this? He then tries to escape with a cheeky camouflage ability, on which Asta uses his new key sensing power and catches him. And shortly after, Rill captures him with this seizure-inducing paint magic. Moving forward, the Wizard King calls Yami and Asta to his office to discuss some things. And he tells them that the Eye of the Midnight Sun is collecting these magic stones with the intention of acquiring their true forms. And there's 3 magic stones left out there in the world, one being in the underwater temple. So with that said, it seems they have to collect the Dragon Balls. And the Black Bulls then go on a mission to the underwater temple. But of course, before we get into that, we get a beach episode! Because we all know it's not a real anime without a beach episode. But following that, we then go on our journey to the underwater temple via Noelle's big bubble spell, which kind of acts like a submarine. And oh look, they make it. And using Charmy's flying nimbus, they get to the temple and end up bumping into a lot of people, which they are then led to the temple entrance to meet the high priest. Upon meeting him, he then summons some mage minions, and they end up having some random PvP fun. Also meeting the siblings Kiyato and Kohono in the process. And it seems all the fun is very short-lived because the Eye of the Midnight Sun appears once again like fucking Team Rocket. And the threat we're dealing with today is Veto. We then have Magna and Luck coordinating a very juicy team attack, which absolutely does nothing. And as Veto is trying to finish them off, this is where the main character makes his appearance and gets a good slash in there. Asta and Kiyato then tag team Veto and end up getting slapped. And this is when Noelle and Kohono appears and joins the fight. And on a completely related note, did you know Gray was a girl? Oh my god. But back to the fight, Kohono sings, which gives a stab boost to her brother Kiyato, on which absolutely does fucking nothing because he loses a leg in the process. Following that, Veto then dashes over to Kohono and destroys her throat. Not in that way, or I mean, I'm sure you weren't even thinking that way. Let me just shut up. But she can no longer give stab boost by singing anymore, so that is quite unfortunate. And then we now have Noelle pulling up with a big, gigantic attack, which is a big, gigantic sea monster thing. And would you look at that, she rips off one of Veto's arms. But that was all false hope because Veto just opens up his third eye and fully regens his arm like it was nothing, coming back stronger than ever before. This is when Vanessa and Finro joins the fight, and we have some very beautiful teamwork going on here. Soon after, Ghost, Charmy, and Gray show up, and we have some more very juicy teamwork, following up with Asta going a little demon mode and destroying Veto with a clean blow. Veto then says, fuck it, if I can't win, I'm not gonna let you guys win either, and tries to self-destruct. Yami then pulls up in Yami fashion and was like, nah, and takes down Veto with one single slash before he was able to explode. Nero then comes in with the magic stone afterwards, and with that said, I suppose this mission is now officially complete. And they head off saying their goodbyes. Moving forward, we're now back at the Black Bulls hangout, and this is when Yami shows up mentioning that he has to report to the Wizard King, bringing Charmy and Asta along. Upon meeting up with the Wizard King, they are informed that the town Kitten is being invaded by the Diamond Kingdom, and if they manage to take over, it will be significantly easier for them to invade the Clover Kingdom. But as they're discussing the matter, they then find out the Golden Dawn has arrived at the scene to help out, and we see Yuno doing Yuno things. As reinforcements, Asta and the other Black Bull members pull up, but it seems things are already taken care of by Vengeance, who spawns a whole ass world tree, like we're in the 4th Great Ninja War. We then have Asta and Yuno having a nice little reunion where they just talk a bit of shit, cause they're rivals. And we have Yami over here who wants to have a little chat with Vengeance, because he has a gut feeling that Vengeance is licked, due to the fact that he can use world tree magic and senses a very similar key resembling Lick's. And so he orders him to do a face reveal. With him taking off the mask, Yami was like, oh wow, you're actually not licked. And then we have a nice little backstory where we learn that Vengeance was born with these scars, and how he met the Wizard King, and how he ended up devoting his Grimoire to him. So yeah, pretty epic. And then we get word from the Wizard King's advisor that the Diamond Kingdom has retreated. So I guess the town of Kitten is saved. Hooray! And so now moving forward, Yami brings Asta to the best recovery magic in the Clover Kingdom that actually works directly under the Wizard King. Because one important detail I have accidentally left out is that Asta's arms are absolutely fucked and are completely at commission following his fight with Veto. And as the doctor is healing Asta's arm, he then tells him, your arms are fucking cursed and there's absolutely nothing I can do to heal them. Finro ends up eavesdropping and tells the entire squad about Asta's condition. And here we see a very sad Asta. Of course, with Asta in this state, this made all the bulls want to find a solution for Asta's arm. And so they all go on a journey for a cure. Eventually, Noelle bumps into some people and gets some nice intel. And they tell her their best bet is to go to the Witch's Forest, where they specialize in curses. Which it seems Vanessa was already ahead of the curve and goes there by herself. And one thing to note is that if you are a witch and leave the homeland of the Witch's Forest like Vanessa did, yeah, Vanessa's a witch by the way, that person will be marked as a fugitive. But she decides to go anyways because our main character is in dire need. She then offers that she's willing to return to the Witch's Forest if the Witch Queen heals Asta's arm. And things don't go as planned unfortunately, and she gets knocked the fuck out. We then have Asta, Noelle, Finro, and 3 other characters I'm too lazy to elaborate on pulling up to the Witch's Forest, cause we want our arms fixed, man. But of course things are never that straightforward, and we have the Eye of the Midnight Sun pulling up once again, led by Fauna, and the Diamond Kingdom too decides to join in on the fun and invades the Witch's Forest. Noelle then proposes a deal with the Witch Queen to heal Asta's arm in exchange for the Black Bulls to fend off the invasion. She accepts, and using her blood recovery magic, she gets Asta back in action. But little did they know, the Witch Queen had an ulterior motive to steal Asta's anti-magic at the end of all of this. But that's not our main concern right now, and we got some bad guys to take care of. So our first boss battle is with Fauna, whose main motive is to exact revenge on the Black Bulls for absolutely decimating Licht and Veto. We then have Asta going through with a slingshot attack powered by the power of friendship, slashing Fauna's salamander in the process. Mars from the Diamond Kingdom then pulls up and realizes that Fauna was his childhood friend, who he seemingly killed as a part of the Diamond Kingdom's human experiments. Fauna then goes a little bit berserk here, but Mars uses the power of the Talk No Jutsu to calm her down and bring her to her senses. And just as things are looking pretty peaceful, we then have Ladros from from the Diamond Kingdom, disrupting it all, getting a hold of Fauna and absorbing her magic to become stronger. This is where the Witch Queen is like, yo, I think I need to give the protagonist just a little bit of a power up to compete. And so using her blood magic, she awakens Asta's demon mode, which allowed him to communicate with his inner demon for a minute. We then have this epic brawl between Asta and Ladros in this legendary episode, which had Twitter on fire for a whole entire day. Can't believe that was almost 4 years ago. But yeah, surprisingly enough, the main character wins here. And as Asta's demon mode fades away, he then thinks to himself, maybe I should master this devil power. It seems pretty cool. This is when the Witch Queen takes over Asta's body using some good old blood magic, because you gotta remember her ulterior motive. She then traps everyone in a pool of blood, and using Asta as a puppet, she then tries to kill all his comrades with his anti-magic sword. This is where plot comes in clutch, and Vanessa unlocks this red cat that could change fate. So the fate where Asta slashes Noelle's head off, yeah, that must have been our imagination. And the fate where the Witch Queen has total control over everyone, yeah, hold this red cat. And with her losing to a cat, she then goes like, damn, I lost. I guess I'll heal everyone and let's move on with our lives. Giving the Black Bulls her earring afterwards, which is actually a magic stone. And regarding the Diamond Kingdom individuals, Mars intends to return to the Diamond Kingdom along with Ladros to make it a peaceful place. So good for them. We then have the Black Bulls returning back to their base, celebrating their victory, and also handing the magic stone to Yami, which is later passed on to the Wizard King. Moving forward, we then get a little slice of life in there where we have some silly festival fun. And during this festival, we then have the Clover King announcing that they've located the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout and are planning to form a squad of royal knights to take care of them. With that said, the new temporary leader of the Crimson Lion, Leona, then drags a good handful of characters into a little training arc. Not much really happens here, but we get to see that Asta's getting a hold of his demon powers. And of course, we get handed a plate of some good old classic fan service. I'm not complaining. Moving forward to select the royal knights that will be invading the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout, the Clover King holds an exam to determine which individuals are worthy. And by the way, the Wizard King and the Clover King are two separate people. The Clover King is just the king of the Clover Kingdom, and the Wizard King is actually the king we only care about. And with me kind of zooming through this exam, the finalized team for the royal knights is... oh god, this is a large-ass list. Asta, Noelle, Luck, Yuno, Mimosa, Klaas, Rill, Fragil, Nozel, Ruben, Ben, Nils, N, Kirsch, Huli, Haman, Shirin, Cobb, and the new member of the Black Bull, Zora, who was recently picked up by Yami following the Royal Knights exam which he participated in. And also the captain of the Royal Knight squad is Leona. Moving forward, the Royal Knights TP to the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout, on which they split into teams, with the ultimate goal to reach the center of the base. Here's Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, and Group 5. You got me fucked up if you think I'm listing the names again. With the teams all organized like this, they then disperse into the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout. Meanwhile, at the Black Bulls base, they get invaded by the Eye of the Midnight Sun's Rads, Voltos, and the crazy scientist Lady Sally. And with this happening, this is where we get the introduction to another Black Bulls member, Henry, who was apparently in the base this whole entire time, but in a hidden room. He then uses the base as a transformer to fight the bad guys, but soon after, Voltos, Sally, and Rads retreat after robbing the Black Bulls' magic stone. They then deliver the stone to Licht, where he plants the magic stone into a stone tablet, revealing that he only needs 2 more to bring forth their true power, which Licht intends to retrieve himself. Moving forward, while exploring the Eye of the Midnight Sun's hideout, Asta squad ends up bumping into Raya, and Leona ends up giving him a nice little spanking. He then tries to self-destruct as a final resort like all his other teammates in the past, but Asta says no, and stops him with a sword. Moving forward past that, we then cut to the Wizard King, who's having a nice discussion with Vengeance. I know things are a little bit all over the place right now, but trust me, things will all come full circle eventually. So as Vengeance and the Wizard King are having a rather wholesome conversation, this is when Vengeance is like, I feel like being a bad boy today, and the scars on his face start fading away, revealing that he's actually Licht. Who would have thought the captain of the Golden Dawn was a bad guy? I am flabbergasted. Or technically, he isn't actually the bad guy because Licht shared the body of William Vengeance, and William himself was pretty much neutral in all of this because he built such a strong bond with both the Wizard King and Licht. So with being the middleman, William was just like, you know what, take over my body and solve this yourself, okay? We then have Licht explain the reason why he's a very angry individual and why he wants the eradication of all humans, and that's simply because several centuries ago, the humans apparently massacred all of his people, aka the elves, and he just wants to return the favor because you can't go against the law of equivalent exchange. Licht then follows up with saying, in order to achieve this goal, he'll need the 2 last magic stones in the Wizard King's possession, on which the Wizard King confirms he has. We then of course have this very intense battle, because this is indeed a shonen, and in this fight, the Wizard King reveals his Grimoire, really flexing that he has the biggest dick in the Clover Kingdom. Licht then launches an attack which is a whole ass AoE attack, large enough to nuke the entire kingdom, but the Wizard King then comes in with the save, and saves the whole kingdom by reversing time by a few seconds, being the very OP wizard that he is. But in the midst of doing that, Licht then finds an opening and shanks him, afterwards yoinking the magic stones and dipping, which left the Wizard King, rather dead. And with Licht getting his hands on the stones, he then plugs them into that stone tablet and uses his silly goofy minions Rad, Sally, and Voltos as sacrificial pieces to fuel the resurrection of the elves, which we can see in action with Raya regaining his elf form. We then get this flashback from hundreds of years ago with the elves, and we have this one curious elf named Patri asking Licht about the rumors pertaining to the possibility of the humans attacking them. Licht then says, that's all your imagination. I'm sure we can make peace with them, and nothing like that would ever... Oh, and as Patri is dying over here, we then see Licht casting a forbidden reincarnation spell on him, on which reincarnates Patri into the body we know today as William Vengeance. So this whole time Licht was actually Patri. My brain damn near exploded trying to explain all that. But anyways, with Patri's new given body, he then sets the goal to destroy all humans and gather all the magic stones to revive the entire elven race. Which brings us to the present, where he pulls through with the plan. And humans all over the Clover Kingdom begin to get their bodies hijacked like GTA vehicles by these elf reincarnates, including many of the royal knights, and somehow even getting our main character Yuno in the process. With this set in motion, Patri declares the extinction of humans, and the reincarnated elves begin their attack on the kingdom. And so we have a bunch of reincarnated elves popping up left and right, and so this led to the protagonists running for their lives. But sadly, on their escape attempt, Asta gets grabbed by Raya and dragged to the area where Yuno and his squad mates are. Looking around, it seems everyone aside from Mimosa is hijacked by elves, but with Asta screaming that he wants to become the Wizard King, this woke Yuno the fuck up, still keeping his elf-like appearance. With that said, Yuno and Asta then have some nice tag team action, knocking out Klaus and Haman, who were possessed by elves. And this is where the boss battle Licht awakens from his slumber and picks up a pretty cool looking sword. We then have a pretty epic battle with some pretty epic combat, which it seems they're really trying to go up to space. While in the air, Asta manages to loot Licht's sword, now getting possession over it, but soon after receiving it, Licht ass blasts the fuck out of Asta and Yuno, which seems to have done a number to the environment. Following that, Asta is left unconscious, but at least he gets a new sword in his inventory. Moving forward, Yuno manages to save Mimosa and Asta, and as Asta awakens, the other royal knights that haven't been influenced by the elves' reincarnation are around him. This is when the elves make their next move and drive their giant ass rock base like a boatmobile to the royal capital. And with them doing that, the royal knights then of course chase after them by fast traveling there. And the main plot points following this consist of 1. Asta learning that his new sword can negate the reincarnation spell, saving people from it. 2. Noel unlocking a new spell which honestly looks pretty epic. And 3. The 3 bozos that Patri sacrificed for the reincarnation spell self-res themselves, and they are no longer evil, joining the Black Bull's side in the fight against the elves. Everything else aside from these events is just a bunch of fighting against the resurrected elves back to back to back to back, and Asta manages to nullify a few of them in the process, turning them back to normal. So yeah, pretty cool. Which now brings us to Patri revealing the final stage of his plan, which is to place the final magic stone, which is Yuno's necklace by the way, into a tablet that's located deep within the castle. And by doing so, it'll wipe out all humans in the kingdom and make the elves reincarnation permanent. We then have the apostles of Saphira, aka the top 10 most OP elves out of the bunch, opening the Shadow Palace, which is a gateway to the underworld that has been sealed under the Clover Castle many years ago by the ancient humans and elves. We then see this big portal open up, which the apostles fly into, and with the apostles heading into the Shadow Palace, Yami and Jack decide to follow. And shortly after, Asta, Noel, Mimosa, and some other captains decide to follow as well. And as they are traveling in this portal, we just see a bunch of sperm cell looking things, or worms, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. And at the end of the portal, they all magically get separated, leaving Asta paired up with Mimosa. They then do some parkour up some steps, where they encounter one of the apostles. And it's not just them who has to fight an apostle, everyone else that were warped here are fighting apostles as well. So it's just a bunch of crazy action going on here. But while all that's happening, Yuno's necklace starts glowing, which allows him access to the palace, dragging Charmy along with him. Yuno is then brought to this place with a bunch of the apostles, where they tell him, give us that damn necklace. Yuno was like, nah, I don't think I will, and ends up getting gangbanged by them, sadly losing the necklace in the process. The apostle Rone then places the magic stone into the tablet, and here it's revealed that Rone was actually possessed by a devil named Zagrid, who now rises from the land of the dead. Oh no! We then have Asta and Mimosa dropping by, and this is where the main characters try to fight Zagrid, where they soon have to learn that magic is useless against him because he can use word soul magic, meaning anything he says becomes reality. Kinda OP if you ask me. Zagrid then reveals that he was the one who orchestrated the ancient humans to massacre the elves, and the war between the humans and the Eye of the Midnight Sun was all a part of his plan to get his body back. Now that's what we call a certified anime villain moment. With Patri hearing this, he then gets filled with despair, which transforms his 4-leaf Grimoire into a 5, on which Zagrid yoinks and flies away with, leaving Asta, Yuno, and Mimosa with a now corrupt Patri to deal with. Nozel then arrives to help out, but that was kind of pointless because Asta just simply talked no jutsu's Patri back to normal, bringing him to a non-hostile state. And so now moving forward, we now cut to Nero actually talking verbally to Finral, telling him to teleport them to the tablet where the magic stones are and bring them over to the statue of the first Wizard King on top of the skull. They then plug the stones into him, filling him up real good, and by doing so, the statue crumbles, and it turns out the first Wizard King was just sleeping there dormant the entire time. Here we also get to see Nero's true form and identity, Sakurai Swallowtail, which to now give you some insight on the backstory of the first Wizard King, he was friends with Licht, and on his way to his friend's wedding, it seems the damage was already done by the nuisance of a devil, Zagrid. As a result of this tragedy, Licht then falls into despair, converting his 4-leaf Clover Grimoire into a 5, similar to what we witnessed with Patri. And this, by the way, is the original 5-leaf Grimoire that would one day belong to Asta. And with that said, Zagrid then tries to possess Licht and take over his body, but to prevent this, Licht then uses forbidden magic, transforming himself into this giant demon, requesting that the Wizard King kills him. To honor his friend's wishes, he neutralizes him with one pretty goddamn big attack. Zagrid then tries to loot Licht's Grimoire, but is soon after stopped by Sekret, which left him with no other option but to use a forbidden magic spell on himself so that he could be reincarnated centuries later. After that, Sekret then petrifies the Wizard King, who is in critical condition after fighting the demon, and by doing so, that saved him, but due to the fact that Sekret used forbidden magic, that transforms her into an anti-bird. God damn, that was so much to explain. This video is gonna be so fucking fucking long, man. I better see at least 40 likes on this video. Anyways, now cutting back to the present, we have the first Wizard King and Sekre zooming into the Shadow Palace, into a room with our biggest boss battle yet, Zagreus. Fighting alongside them, we have Asta, Yuno, Patri, and Licht. Licht then tries to pull all this power together for this massive attack and nukes Zagreus, but unfortunately does nothing. This is where we have the power of friendship pulling through once again, extra strong, and Asta manages to get one juicy slash in there, finishing the deed. Well, that was quite anticlimactic. It's not like I skimmed through a lot of the content to get to the ending result. Anyways, with the threat now defeated, everyone in the palace all reunite, and shortly after escaping this place that was drenched in purple cum. As they escape the Shadow Palace, they then find out that the remaining elves are still attacking the kingdom, and this is when Patri reveals that they could defeat them using Vengeance's World Tree magic, and tells Asta to nullify his reincarnation, returning the body to Vengeance, or William, or I don't even know what the fuck to call him at this point. William then combines his World Tree magic with Licht's magic, binding all the elf souls to the tree, and using Asta's sword, they nullify every one of the reincarnations, allowing the souls to pass on, aside from Veto, Raya, and Fana, who have artificial bodies. And with Rod's very angry at Patri for his betrayal, he then uses a spell to capture Patri's soul and reincarnates him into a clone body that Sally created for him, demanding that he stays in atone for all the people he killed. And Patri was like, okay. With that said, we finally have our resolution, with the Wizard King happy that the ideal world that he worked for is finally becoming reality. He then says his final words to Sekre before passing off due to the fact that he used up all his magic. No! Moving forward, we have Sekre joining the Black Bulls, and it turns out the current Wizard King is actually still alive, just a little small. And the reason why he's alive is because he managed to store off 13 years into a magic tool just in case he was ever killed. So I guess that came in clutch. But now he's built like a middle schooler and no longer has the magical powers he once did in his prime. He then gets together with a few magic knights, Asta being one of them, notifying them that the Magic Parliament may execute Asta for having connections with a devil, because their logic is, a devil attacked the kingdom, so why not point fingers at the person who uses demonic powers? And to quickly sum up what the Magic Parliament is, it's basically just a group of royals and nobles who create laws and runs trials for serious crimes. With that said, we then have Asta getting dragged to the courthouse, where he fails to defend himself and winds up with the death penalty. But luckily for him, Bugolion comes in with the save and reveals that the Wizard King has ordered the Black Bulls to investigate the devil race to prove Asta's innocence. With that said, Asta, Mimosa, Noelle, Sekre, and Finral then head to the Heart Kingdom to collect some intel, where they bump into Gaja, Undine, and eventually the Queen Lodo Pachika. I'm pretty sure I butchered at least one of their names. But here we find out Lodo Pachika was cursed by this devil named Megicula, giving her a 1-year time limit to live if nothing is done, which is also the same curse that took Noelle's mother. Undine then requests if Asta and the others can help defeat Megicula, who is located in the Spade Kingdom, revealing that Megicula is actually more powerful than the devil that Asta just recently fought. Lodo Pachika then follows up with saying Megicula intends on invading all the kingdoms, and with that in mind, she plans on invading the Spade Kingdom before the curse gets the best of her. We then have Mimosa opening up Skype to verify with the Wizard King if the Clover Kingdom can assist in this fight. He agrees, and with that said, Lodo Pachika gives the Magic Knights 6 months to grow stronger before the invasion. And given the new introduced situation, the Magic Parliament holds off on Asta's trial and puts it on hiatus until after the war. We then have this very nice and thick training arc where we have all the Magic Knights train, and during this time Yuno gets his epic necklace back. How very cool. And after 6 months of ferocious training, we then have the Spade's army crossing the border in this big ass mechanical vehicle powered by its villagers. This is when Asta comes in playing Sonic Riders, flying into the machine in complete and utter shonen fashion. Soon after his arrival, he then takes out the commander of the vehicle with ease, really showing off the results of his training. And then we have reinforcements coming in just a little bit late, and Mimosa heals the Space Kingdom's prisoners that were being sucked dry from their magic to fuel this machine. The prisoners then reveal that the Spade Kingdom is ruled by the Dark Triad, each member possessing a powerful devil, and they also have underlings called Dark Disciples that draw demonic power from the Triad. Moving forward, the Golden Dawn headquarters seems to be getting attacked by the Dark Triad. Upon Yuno's arrival, it seems everyone just got absolutely obliterated. So much for being the strongest knights in the kingdom. With that said, Yuno then tries to defend his surviving comrades, where he destroys one of the Dark Disciples quite gruesomely. Plus also takes out a member of the Disciples, and hopefully the Golden Dawn could pull through together and maybe pull off a tactical nuke. Xenon from the Triad then suddenly appears, having defeated and captured William, which then Yuno tries to do something about it, but gets absolutely fucked, allowing Xenon to get away with their captain. Luckily for the Golden Dawn, William planted a nice magical tree for them, which heals everyone that was injured. As for the people who died, yeah, they're dead. Ain't no way you coming back from that. And this now leaves half of the Golden Dawn remaining in the aftermath. We then have Yuno yelling at the sun for whatever reason, and then we now move forward to the Heart Kingdom, which is now getting invaded by the Dark Disciples, which they weren't really that much of a threat, and one gets destroyed here, one gets destroyed there, and one gets destroyed here. Moving forward, we have Asta and Finral arriving at the Black Bulls base, and Lodo Pachika and I don't know how to say this, sensing 6 enemies that have entered the Heart Kingdom, and apparently Vonica is one of them, who is the host of the devil Megicula. They then get a personal visit by Vonica, on which she reveals that she cursed each of the disciples disciples with immortality, meaning the disciples that were defeated actually didn't die, so how quite unfortunate, and the only way to defeat them is by defeating Vanica herself. They then break out into this fight, and in the process, Noelle unlocks her new Valkyrie dress mermaid form, delivering fan service to the viewers and delivering a blow on her enemy, which does absolutely nothing, unfortunately. Shortly after, as the fight progressed, Vanica activates her curse on all her disciples, making them all self-destruct because they were nothing but filler villains. She then kidnaps Lodo Pachica, telling Noelle to get stronger, and that she'll be waiting for her in the Spade Kingdom. Meanwhile, at the Black Bull's base, Finral goes and teleports to fetch Yami. As that happens, the base is then attacked by Dante of the Dark Triad. With Yami absent, this really only left the main character Asta to take on the threat, because let's be real here, with a spiritual pressure like this, the other bull stood no chance. We then have Asta unleashing a very new form from his devil power, and even landing a slash on this OP threat. But that doesn't mean shit, and he gets knocked out. Soon after, Finral gets Yami into the fight, and this is when Dante explains the Triad's plan on reaching the underworld. But in order for them to do that, they require William's World Tree magic and Yami's dark magic to access the spell the Tree of Clift, which will allow every devil from the underworld to rise to the human world, ultimately pretty much just destroying the entire world. Yami then gets crushed by a giant boulder, but of course he survives. Following up with getting a very juicy shot on Dante, which really does nothing except unlock the second phase of the boss battle, Asta then gets back up and joins Yami in the fight, because it seems the villain is a little stronger than they anticipated. We then have Asta conversing with the devil, who agrees to give him some of his true power in return for a body part, on which he accepts, and so we have Yami and Asta going crazy on Dante, nullifying his devil's Lucifero's powers and defeating him. Following this, Zenon then suddenly appears and kidnaps Yami, and so now he has both pieces to his plan. Shortly after, he retreats because he's a little bitch, and now we move forward to Noelle's POV, where she wakes up in Elshia, which is the new certified elves village, along with Sekirei, Charmy, Leopold, Mimosa, and Luck. They are all welcomed by Patri, Raya, Fauna, and Veto, and Patri explains that the Guardian Elshia, Dryad, foretold them to save Noelle and the others, and that's the reason why they're here. Noelle then pleads the elves for help to become stronger, so they can save Lodo Pachica, and so they do. Moving forward, Asta wakes up with Yami's katana appearing from his grimoire. He then meets up with Noct, the secret vice captain of the Black Bulls, who also possesses a devil, on which he offers to teach Asta on how to use his devil's power, and introduces him to his devil, Gimmadilla. He also reveals that he's been a spy in the Spade Kingdom for years, and that Yami and William will be sacrificed in a 7-day ceremony, leaving a little wiggle room for the protagonist to get stronger. And he plans on getting an elite team composed of the captains and Asta to invade the Spade Kingdom to rescue both Yami and William and stop the ritual in 2 days. With that said, we then have Gaja Skyping the royal capital, letting everyone know what happened in the Heart Kingdom, and at the Black Bull's base, Noct tells everyone they have 2 days to get stronger. With that in mind, we then have Noct bringing Asta to an abandoned house for some training. Noct then initiates a devil binding ritual to summon the anti-magic devil, and instructs Asta to defeat it. But Asta was like, nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna thank him for all the help he gave me in my previous battles. Hearing this reminds the anti-magic devil of this one woman from his past that resembles Asta, maybe because that woman was actually his mother. We then have his backstory, talking about the rules of power in the underworld, and that he was tormented because of the little magic he had. The anti-magic devil is then rescued by Richta, who explains her magic power is draining mana from all near her, and decides to raise the devil as her own son. Lucifero then ends up possessing the anti-magic devil in the story, who is just really angry that he was able to reside in the human world without making a contract with the human. Richta then tries to interfere, but then gets rolled by Lucifero, which she then seals the anti-magic devil into a grimoire before dying. This is where the anti-magic devil developed his anti-magic from spending time cursing Lucifero and the other devils. Asta then acknowledges the devil's feelings of rage and hatred and sorrow and all that pain, and decides to fight him in this very epic battle. As a result, Asta wins, but instead of enslaving the devil through the devil binding ritual, Asta proposes that they just be friends, since they have a common goal. With that said, they then shake hands, completing their contract, and Asta manages to pull through with this talk no jutsu, befriending the anti-magic devil, Libe. Afterwards, we then have a bunch of cuts to the other magic knights training to become stronger so they can rescue Yami and William, and oh, that's it.